ago when we sat down with a bunch of landlords. We're talking to them saying, why don't you use anything today? And the common theme was, I don't want to be taxed for my growth, right? Like as I add more units, I don't want to see that incremental cost with that. So that really was the structure that we set up, was to say, we don't have to charge you more on the platform just because you add more units. And really a big way we do that is because we offer a lot of benefits that honestly end up benefiting the tenant in the long run anyway, that end up driving things for us.
Ryan, thank you for joining me on our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host here, Matt Camp, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine an industry spotlight on experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories, and really educate our audience on the lessons that you've learned over the years. So today, really excited to welcome on Ryan Barone. You're the CEO and co-founder of RentRedi, the all-in-one property management software. You guys have over $18 billion in assets under management. That's pretty wild. And nearly 200,000 landlords and tenants using the platform. So welcome on, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So one thing I love to hear, I know you talked about that you started RentRedi as a tenant and trying to solve your own problems. So can you maybe talk through that story and how RentRedi came to become what it is today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started years ago when I was a college student in New York City. I grew up in upstate New York, a small town outside of Albany, and moved to New York, was going to school down here. I was double majoring in math and economics, minor in computer science. I'd gotten my first internship. It was time to move out of dorms, go get that first apartment, all starry-eyed, excited about that first apartment experience. And quickly realized that it was a lot easier for me to find an apartment than it was for me to actually rent that apartment. All of the documents I ended up needing to gather along with my roommates, all three of us had guarantors. We didn't get everything we needed together in time to actually rent that unit. So we missed out on that one. I was pretty sad. It was in a great location. It was going to be close to school for the school year and then internship for summer. And so I came away from that experience feeling like, maybe I just wasn't very good at renting on my side of things. And I should, maybe just get better at that. And as I talked to people more, especially on the tenant side of things, I realized it was kind of a common theme that, hey, it's not as easy as you think. And so I initially started building an app for myself and friends just to apply to apartments more easily. Just make it easier to gather documents quicker, get them to a landlord quicker, make that process really fast and seamless for both parties. And the really interesting thing that came about from that was, as soon as I started working with more and more landlords, they were saying to me, hey, Ryan, like our side's just as bad, if not worse. In fact, it's really, the issue is that like we don't have the tool that we need. And you're seeing the trickle down effect of that on the tenant side, that we're juggling all these different things. And it's not just applications. A lot of it's rent collection and maintenance and listings and screening tenants and communicating with them. And there's, you're getting pulled in a million different directions. And by the way, most of us are doing this while juggling a full-time job. And I really ended up falling in love with, building it for both sides of things. And so, fast forward about 7 years now. We just passed 7 years, December 5th. RentRedi. Thank you. Thousands and thousands of personal conversations and chats with landlords over the years, and really has been an amazing journey, developing to what, like you said, has really become this more all-in-one platform, like truly everything that you need as an investor, as a landlord, to manage your properties and then create that amazing experience for tenants as well. It's really been a dream. It's been a great ride.
Man, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we very similar in terms of on the DealMachine front, like just solving your own problem. I know David Lecko, our CEO and founder or co-founder, it was about 6-7 years ago as well. And going out to find off-market properties was the problem he was solving for himself, but it was around using technology and automation to solve that problem. So
right.
There you go. Yeah, and I mean the automation side, I know that's like a common theme for you guys. Can you maybe dig into that on how you use automation both for the landlord and tenant side to really save them time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important pieces for me is just one of our own landlords put it at one point, it doesn't matter how good the deal is if you don't know how to manage it. I was like, oh, that's really interesting that you talked about it, right? We think about like so much, we got to find the right deal, which you do. You absolutely have to find the right deal, but also then what do you do once you put in all of that work and all that research to do it? And a lot of it realistically comes down to just how much time do you have in a day? And especially if you're trying to scale those operations, like look for that next deal, buy that next property. You can't have this one-to-one relationship in terms of the amount of time you spend managing that property and the amount of units you have. And so you have to create this non-linear relationship in terms of the number of units you have and the amount of time you spend per unit. And really the way to do that is by setting up the right processes to be able to automate a lot of those things so that you're making decisions in the beginning about how do I want to do this? How do I want to, set up late fee structures, or when I have leases renewed, do I want them to automatically convert to, monthly schedules by default and have that go? But basically, once you're setting this up, you shouldn't have to go in and do all of that manual work every day, automatically reminding tenants or reaching out or screenings or listings or whatever it might be. And so that's really where we focused. I think a lot of people are doing amazing things in different areas. It's one of the things I love about real estate, like whether it's finding a deal or managing that deal or automating the work or whatever it might be. For us, for me, the love is around like automating that manual work once you own it and once you're trying to buy and hold, to make that as easy of an experience as possible. And so that's really where we've really focused a lot of our efforts, is on that individual that's a lot of times, anywhere from 1 to 20 units, if not 1 to 100 units. We really are not building it so much for that massive property manager that has tens of thousands of doors, but more so for that individual investor that doesn't have enough time in the day. And we're trying to give them a little bit more of that time back by automating some of the process for them.
Love it. I mean, that lines up very well with our audience as well. And, I know on our end, I mean, again, we're speaking to a lot of people who are, whether it be, aspiring, property owners, or, currently own, 1 to 10 units, like kind of that's, maybe smaller, mom and pop approach, scaling. Do you have any kind of cost savings advice for them in 2024? Like, tell us more about, what you're seeing out there, and any best practices that you see would be definitely beneficial for our audience.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the angles we try to take is like we never take a percentage of anything, right? Like flat fee to use the platform. I think there's a lot of platforms out there that are trying to do that in different ways. And that honestly came from early discussions with some landlords out the Property Owners Association in New Jersey years and years ago, when we sat down with a bunch of landlords. We're talking to them saying, why don't you use anything today? And the common theme was, I don't want to be taxed for my growth, right? Like as I add more units, I don't want to see that incremental cost with that. So that really was the structure that we set up, was to say, we don't have to charge you more on the platform just because you add more units. And really a big way we do that is because we offer a lot of benefits that honestly end up benefiting the tenant in the long run anyway, that end up driving things for us. So things like credit boosting was one we added in through popular demand from tenants, actually, but is another way that we don't charge like a landlord to use the platform more. They can help cut costs on the management side of things, because basically the tenant pays to report their rent. The tenant's happy that they're reporting their rent to credit bureaus because they're building their credit over time, which means when they get a car loan, honestly, out of one loan, they've made way more money than they ever paid for credit boosting, but they get to build their credit. And ultimately the landlord gets their money on time when they should. So that's just another way that we've, kind of expanded the reach of what we're building to address some of the cost cutting measures and help people out.
Nice. Yeah. And I know you guys, like you mentioned, it's, that smaller, the kind of mom and pop approach, all, up to kind of, scaling investor, which again, like I think really fits most people watching this right now. Do you have any kind of, lessons learned that you've seen across the board from those folks of, how they can scale in a smart way, like common mistakes you see made, like really, things across your customer base that you could say like, hey, make sure to keep this in mind as you go on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the way that podcasts like your own, I think, do a great service to people in terms of you've lived certain experiences that I may not have lived, and I've lived some that you haven't. And so everyone listening as well, sharing that knowledge is incredibly beneficial. And I think that's really where everyone can help each other. From our perspective, how we try to do that is we see, literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tenants, tens of thousands of landlords, all 50 states, all throughout the US, constantly using the platform in different ways for different use cases. How do you manage a storage unit in, Wisconsin versus mixed use property in Massachusetts? Or what are the commonalities of those things? We really make a conscious effort to try to distill where there's overlap for those things, and those things can be shared with different people. And what we do as we build it into the platform is what we refer to as basically smart defaults. So when you come into the platform, you don't necessarily have to make a conscious decision of when should I automatically remind my tenants to pay rent, for example. We'll set that up by default. You can change it if you want to. But also if you're a newer investor or you're an investor that's trying to scale in a new area, you don't necessarily have to make that decision out of the box. I was listening to one of your other podcasts from a couple weeks ago, and one of the things I loved that you had on there with Joshua Good was he was saying, he was looking for wholesaling, his first wholesaling deal, right? And he found the deal before he actually learned about comps. And once he found the deal, then he went and did the comps research. And you're talking about, you don't have to know everything when you start. And I think very similarly, like we try to embody that from the software and property management aspects of owning and scaling your portfolio, of saying you don't necessarily need to know that, hey, in this particular state, I should be separating rent from security deposits, because using RentRedi, we will prompt you when you're adding a new property to say, hey, do you want to be separating your security deposits into a different account than rent? Should those be in separate accounts? Or do you want different late fee structures for these different states? Because, hey, in certain states, you have a maximum late fee by percentage or dollar amount that you can't go over. And so it allows us to kind of build in that knowledge that we've learned from other people that have been using it, so that you don't necessarily have to know everything when you're starting that journey, or even, been a part of that journey for a long time.
Love that. Yeah, I'm very much like leading with action is something that it was a recurring theme for us and learning through doing. So love to see that. I mean, one question we hear a lot often as well, for that newer, landlord, the newer property owner, is around like rent payments and how to, do that in the how to approach that in the best way, So do you have any best practices around systems you can be setting up and how to best work with tenants when it comes to that whole process?
Yeah. So our setup is really trying to make it, one, really easy for the tenant. The easier you can make it for them, the less they're going to contact you for help. The less they contact you for the help, the less time you have to spend on it, So really making sure whatever solution you're going with, you're trying to make it a really smooth experience on their side of things as well as yours. It's a big focus that we've had, candidly, because initially I was building for the tenant side as well. So that was close to heart to make sure that a landlord and a tenant both were going to be happy using the platform. But the other aspect of it, I think, comes down to how many of those different pieces can you automate, and then do you have safeguards in place for different situations. For example, I remember still we had a landlord call us up when I used to do our chat support for the first 3 years of the business. My co-founder and myself, every time you would call, went direct to our cell phones. Chat went directly to us. And I remember this landlord called me up in Texas, said, hey, I'm going through an eviction proceeding. And if a tenant pays even $10, it resets the eviction clock for me. I need to be able to block payments on a tenant by tenant basis. And so that was something we built in overnight. By Saturday morning, they had that in the platform. And basically that ability to basically decide if I need a tenant to pay me full rent or nothing, or I want them to give me a certified check or not, having those in place and having a system that can kind of keep you safe when you need it to, and scale with you as you move into different areas or grow that portfolio, I think is really important from the rent perspective.
What about, another one we hear often is best practices around just, around finding new tenants and that whole process.
Yeah.
I know you guys focus on that too. Can you maybe share some of those best practices as well?
Yeah. I think screening is a huge portion of it. Our approach is, again, giving you that default out of the box, which is built on thousands and thousands of landlords. We actually do a pre-qualification, which was something we built off of a number of landlords that had really scaled. All the way up to a 2,000 unit portfolio that was running pre-quals before their applications. And the really exciting piece that came out of that was essentially you were spending your time with the best 5 tenants instead of the first 5 tenants that reach out. It's a quick questionnaire, but it helps me understand, for example, if you have a dog and I don't accept pets, there's just no reason for you to, look at the unit and spend time with me and vice versa with me with you, or if pets are completely fine, you're in a great credit and income range, then wonderful. I'm probably going to accept you if everything checks out when we run the full application and screening later. But it lets me really weed through some of the noise there. So that's our approach. We let everyone customize it if they want to, but kind of giving that out of the box, you don't have to think about it unless you want to think about it. and then doing that full credit, criminal, and eviction report. Understanding, are your tenants in a good credit and income range? There's times that you can sometimes overcome some of that. Like one of the things we're actually working on right now, we'll be adding pretty soon, is around income verification. Some of that is we're doing credit, criminal, and eviction today. We have tenants report their income as well. But there are times where if you have an asset report tied to that, there's times where a tenant that's really on the fence for you, you could possibly approve if that asset report or income report comes back really positive, or vice versa. So I think as much as you can, screening tenants and kind of knowing your criteria beforehand is really helpful to not have a bias once you have that tenant in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that as something that's coming. I mean, can you tell us more in terms of what 2024 is going to look like? Like, how do you use automation to continue to bring value to people? Like, we would love to hear any thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always really focused on what is the most manual task you're spending time on, and does it have something that we can break down into a step-by-step process so that we can essentially eliminate that, offload that process from you. So one of them that we've done recently is around leases that we'll be seeing. You'll probably be seeing more of in 2024 as well. Some other automation things. I won't give away too much, but one of them recently was around different lease schedules. You're seeing more and more landlords build out basically multiple year schedules, like a multi-year lease that increases, X% every single year, or after that first year period automatically converts to a month-to-month lease, for example. So that's one that we actually have released even just in the second half of this year to basically automate that process.
Love it. Yeah, appreciate the little preview there. Awesome, man. One other big one we hear on our end is really that transition question of like, hey, should I be a DIY landlord? Should I hire a property management firm? Like, how do you guys think through that? The answer to that, how someone can kind of work through that themselves? Like, I'd love to hear your thought process on what that looks like.
Yeah. So our approach really has been to empower you to go whichever way you'd like to. We actually have most of our platform, honestly, are individuals that say, I want to do it myself, but I don't want the headache of doing it with pen and paper and spreadsheets or doing it manual. I want to automate more of this process and have a truly complete solution. But we have a number of property managers on the platform as well, some of which are just the property manager alone, but actually some of which are actually the landlord first coming to us and saying, I would like to use RentRedi, but I want a property manager. I'm going to have the account and I'll add the property manager as my teammate. So they go in, they manage, they do everything for me. But technically, I own that account. I own my own data. As I scale that portfolio, I know that I always have access to everything I need. I have my real-time report. So I don't have to reach out to them to ask them to run a report for me. So it's a really nice experience. It puts you in control, whether you're directly managing it yourself, which most of our platform does, or even if you decide to go that property manager route and say, I want someone to handle the day-to-day operations, but I want visibility into knowing what's going right or wrong in my property at any time.
Yeah. If they do go that DIY route, are there any commonalities of like most common mistakes or most common lessons learned that you can share of like, hey, here's what our most successful customers are doing really well?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the maintenance side of things is deciding how handy are you or do you want to be. And so one of the approaches we take on that front is we encourage people to kind of choose from three paths, understanding if you want to do that work directly yourself or not. Some people say, yes, I'm going to do it myself, and fine, you can manage that yourself. Some people say, no, but I have a partner or somebody that I work with closely or I know closely, and I'll invite them. Again, they can be that teammate. The other part is not at all. I don't have a partner. I don't want to do it myself. I want to outsource that. And so we actually, this was a request we actually got from a number of landlords on our platform that were in that, they found themselves in that position where they were like, I own this property. I want to manage it myself. I don't want to do the maintenance anymore. And so one of the learnings for us was we went out and found a partner that could do exactly that. They were doing it with about 100,000 units all across the US already. And basically, they will actually find the vendor, complete the work, do it all. You get updated in real time, but you're not doing it yourself.
Excuse you. We can edit that out. No worries. um, Go ahead. Did you have anything else to add on there, or
Sorry, a little bit of a cough getting over.
no worries? Um, Awesome, man. Yeah, I appreciate you guys being a great resource for us. I know this is a subject that we just haven't covered as much on our end. I mean, we have people with all kinds of different exit strategies, whether it be the wholesaling route, or agents looking for more listings, or the fix and flip folks. But definitely buy and hold, especially with this market, especially even this time of year, is a great time to be getting into this. And so it's great to have you on as a resource for our community. Ryan, thanks so much for your time today again. Like, what's the best way for people to get involved with you, like our community, to check out RentRedi more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way is really rentredi.com. It's a RENTREDI. We're startups, we have to spell something wrong, but you can always find us there. We're a friendly bunch. We have live chat. Anytime you want to message in or call us as well, phone number, you can call in. We're always happy to do a demo if you please, but really set up to let you just jump in and try it out yourself if you want to, or give us a call. But rentredi.com is really the place to start.
Great stuff, Brian. Thanks so much again. I'll make sure we link to that. We've a few more free resources below, like how to scale your real estate business. We'll include that as a link below as well for you guys. But Ryan, really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks again, Matt. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and to everyone watching, is Matt Camp over here with DealMachine. Happy deal finding.